Awesome. Hey, Roberta, how are you?
Hi, Amanda. I'm great. I'm happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to be here with you. This is exciting.
It's exciting. This is the launch of our first podcast, Faith, Policy, and Purpose. We're the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy in Richmond, Virginia. And I'm Roberta Oster, the Communications Director.
And I'm Amanda Klein-Robertson, the Communications Coordinator.
And our mission at the Virginia Interfaith Center is to advocate for economic, racial, and social justice through Virginia's policies and practices, through education, prayer, and action. This particular podcast is going to bring together faith leaders, community advocates, activists, legislators, and subject matter experts to address and share their perspectives on the Commonwealth's most pressing problems.
Absolutely. And one of the most pressing problems today is racial equity in Virginia and the United States. And so that's why our first episode, we're kicking it off with Juneteenth and the backstory of Juneteenth and why it matters to our policy and everything in Virginia. Today's episode will be hosted by our wonderful exec director, Reverend Dr. LaKeisha Cook, and she is joined by Robert Lester, who is our Civic Engagement Coordinator.
I'm Reverend Dr. LaKeisha Cook. I'm the Executive Director here at Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy, and I'm really excited to be able to have a conversation today with one of our staff members, Robert Lester. So Robert, welcome to this conversation with me today.
Pleasure to be with you.
So good to have you here. We are talking about a very important holiday and celebration that we're about to come upon here in the month of June, Juneteenth. And when we were talking about doing this podcast, I thought this was a great place to start, having a conversation with one of our team members who is Black like me, and talking about the importance of this holiday and the history of the holiday and what it means to you on a personal level. So I know when I first learned about Juneteenth, but for those that are watching for the first time, where did you grow up, Robert? Did you grow up in the South?
I did not. Actually, I'm born and raised in Philadelphia. In the old days, they would say I'm a Yankee.
You're a Yankee. All right, so you're from up north. So I'm curious, in Philadelphia growing up, did you ever hear about Juneteenth?
Never.
Okay, so when is the first time you heard about Juneteenth?
Approximately 5 years ago.
Okay.
My brother happens to live in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
And in Texas, it's a big holiday. So prior to that, I really wasn't aware of it.
Okay, so about 5 years ago, so that's around 2020, 2021, Juneteenth you started hearing about it a little bit more.
And that's correct, because that's at the same time that President Biden signed it into law in 2021. So that's basically when I started hearing about it.
Okay, so for those that may not be aware, I am also not from Virginia. I am from Maryland. I grew up right outside the District of Columbia, Upper Marlboro. And growing up as a kid, I didn't hear about Juneteenth. I think I may have heard about it maybe in passing, so I knew Juneteenth was a thing, but I really didn't have any connection to it. And then I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, which is also in the Southwest, and it was a huge thing. I moved there, and they would do this huge Juneteenth celebration every year, and I'm like, okay, what in the world? And so I started learning more, and then like you, about 5 years ago, after I moved back to Virginia, when Biden signed that it was going to now be this federal holiday, it felt like now everybody is talking about Juneteenth.
Correct.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you a question, what does Juneteenth mean to you personally, how would you answer that question?
So I would reflect and say it's a day of remembrance, a day of celebration, and a day of hope.
Yeah.
So I would summarize it that way.
Okay, day of celebration, day of hope. You learned about it. Your brother, now in San Antonio, do they do big celebrations there?
Yes, they have parades. My brother actually works in a service capacity during the parades and the day of celebration.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of, the group that he's involved in, they do a lot of things associated with Juneteenth. So they support the parade by setting up chairs and things like that, but they also have a day of service as well. So they're going to be doing community service and things like that in relationship to June 19th.
Well, I know here recently, particularly in the Richmond metro area, there's a lot of events that are starting to pop up about Juneteenth. Do you have something that you've kind of set as something that you kind of do every year for Juneteenth remembrance? Do you have any plans coming up this year on how you're going to celebrate or commemorate?
I think just personally, I think I will involve my family more involved in it, because I'm like, until a few years ago, I became aware of it not just as a holiday, but what the meaning behind the holiday was. I think I want to bring my family into this, because I'm not sure that they're there yet myself.
Understood. Have you heard about some of the events that are happening in the city? Is there something in Chesterfield that you've heard about? Because I know you live there.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be events all over the Commonwealth, but I did hear about the one here in Richmond that Allegra Folklore is going to be conducting. It's a march over to the ancestor burial grounds. She has a whole program. It's a 2-day event, so I would highlight that as something that I may even participate in.
One great resource that we have that we were going to talk about a little later, but it's perfect to talk about now, on our website, we have a list of all of the Juneteenth activities. Well, not all, but quite a few of them that are happening around the Commonwealth, because not just Richmond is doing something, but other places like Nova, Hampton Roads area, out in the Southwest. There's a lot of events that have already started. So people have a lot of different options depending on what they want to do.
Excellent.
What do you wish that more Virginians understood about Juneteenth?
I would say just the history of the significance of the date. Yeah. Again, a lot of people may know about the Emancipation Proclamation, where it was declared by President Abraham Lincoln that the enslaved people were free. I think it was on January the 1st, 1863. However, that news did not spread throughout our country. And the final folks, like in the southwest portion of the United States, the last group of people found out about it in Texas in 1865.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So
It took a long time.
Took a long time.
And I will just say, from a historical standpoint, there was some intentionality of keeping that news away from some people, particularly our ancestors, in order to keep that free labor that was happening. Absolutely. And so the fact that everybody was able to finally find out that liberation had been achieved through the Emancipation Proclamation, at least a level of liberation, that is something to celebrate.
It is.
Yep.
It is.
So how would you tie in, if you see a tie-in, the Juneteenth celebration and what's going on with voting rights right now? Because we have all of these things that are happening. Again, it's an election year every year in Virginia.
That's correct.
But we've got some pretty big races and some constitutional amendments that are coming up in November. What do you see as a possible connection to this day of freedom and liberation and voting?
Well, if you go back into history, when we had the Declaration of Independence, it just didn't mean that everyone was free and everyone was going to have equal rights. So it was a process building towards that. So, a lot of our civil rights that African American people received came through legislation, and a lot of that was tied to advocacy and marches and things of that nature. So we have a number of bills that came out of that civil rights movement. For example, the voting rights, we talked about the Voting Rights Act. We had, it was a couple other acts. Let me see here.
But the voting rights, that's huge.
Yeah.
That one.
Yes, it is. And again, in that, it guaranteed everyone, if you're legally of a legal age, that you would have access or an ability to vote. We talked about some of the current legislation or how this has all transitioned to now. There seems to be a movement towards putting up more barriers to voting. Yep. We take it for granted that we could just register to vote and go and vote, but there's a movement to put up barriers so that, or limit access to voting, and it's highly active in our immigrant community right now. So you could tie it all back and come forward, but I would summarize it by saying that we still have a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do, and there is a direct connection between voting and liberation, and voting and freedom, and just making sure people understand those two things are linked, and that as we're celebrating freedom, a way to ensure our freedom is to vote.
Absolutely.
And not just vote, right, Robert? It's vote early.
Vote early, yes.
Right.
Don't wait for election day.
Don't wait for election day. Right. And as we're celebrating Juneteenth, we're getting close to like the beginning of early voting season, right? Because when does early voting start?
June 18th for the primary election.
So can you see like the coinciding of those dates? I mean, we've got the early voting starting right before Juneteenth.
That's correct.
That's huge. That's huge. Okay. All right. We're having some good conversation here. And so if you were to name what's one thing that's giving you hope right now, what would you say that one thing is as you're thinking about Juneteenth and where we find ourselves?
So if I think back, I try to go back in time to, not emancipation time, but just our civil rights movement time. It was a tremendous amount of barriers that people had to overcome. People did bus boycotts. It was a lot of marching, a lot of going to Washington and things of that nature. But through that perseverance of the people who were our ancestors, through their perseverance, they were able to move the country. Yep. They talk about Bloody Sunday, when the people were trying to march for a right to vote on the bridge. Yeah. The images of that was so painful that people all over the country said, we have to change this. Yeah. Something is wrong, and we have to change this. So thinking back then, I have hope that while we see these barriers and things that are coming, and they're there. I mean, I'm seeing them. People are trying to eliminate mail-in ballots. We have people who are unable to come to the polls and they utilize the United States mail. But people are trying to say, oh no, that leads to fraud and there's too much opportunities for fraud. But I still have the hope because of what I've seen happen, even though I was young. I still have hope that where these barriers are, that good will still come out of this.
Yep. Well, listen, you are an inspiration of hope for me. I would just say that. I'm not just saying that because we're sitting here talking, but the fact that there are advocates and champions for justice that are still out there fighting the fight. Yes. Because I think in a time like this, apathy can set in and people can just feel hopeless and helpless. There's nothing that we can do, but there's still so much that can be done. Yes. And the fact that we have people like you that are fighting on the front lines and resourcing people who want to fight makes all the difference in the world. So I'm grateful that I get to work with you every day, and I'm grateful for the work that Virginia Interfaith does. And again, Juneteenth just becomes a day of remembrance, not just for Black people, but for people as a whole. Absolutely. And the understanding that our freedom is linked to our action and our ability. We got to fight for freedom. Yes. It's not something that's just given for free. It should be, but it's something that we have to fight every day for. And so we're grateful that we have people fighting with us. We're grateful for people who are watching. Again, Juneteenth is coming up. There are a lot of events. We just need you to check out our website so that you can find a list of events. We invite you, go out and celebrate, remember and commemorate. But as Robert mentioned, it's also a day of service. So find a way that you can serve in your community. And please stay connected to our work. We are excited that you're joining us in our podcast. We invite you to tune in next month when we'll be talking a little bit more about the work that we do at Virginia Interfaith, specifically some of those wins coming out of the General Assembly. And we're looking forward to you joining us again. So thank you so much. And thank you again, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
All right.